In today's video, we'll review Dr. Mike's heart attack blood test results. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO organic acid stool test and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video.
Doctors are notoriously bad patients, and I fall into that category headstrong.
I think that applies to many people, including doctors. If you get stuck in a rut with nutrition and lifestyle, it can often be difficult to take a step back and assess what direction your health is traveling in. But being self-aware of these problems and limitations is often half the battle.
And recently, I went for my checkup and found out something really bad about my health, and I want to share that with you.
Kudos for that. Many health YouTubers fear rocking the boat with their subscribers, and many would rather keep quiet when they run into health problems. So again, just to reiterate, absolute kudos to Dr. Mike for sharing his experiences.
I've been kind of slacking on my health over the last year and a half. I'd like to blame the pandemic, and that's certainly been a part of it. But a lot of it has also come from the fact that I've been a little bit lazy, and I've been slacking, and that's okay. But when push comes to shove, we have to take care of our health.
Unfortunately for many people, they don't have the latitude or flexibility to be lazy with their health. Often the sickest people amongst us are those who have kicked their health into the future because they would rather worry about their health another day. But we shouldn't view health this way, because if you do, then you're going to be playing with fire. Health requires effort and dedication, and this is something that you should be working on a daily basis, not just 3 or 4 days out of every 7. If you take this approach, then you are likely going to end up with a 3 out of 7 health status.
But I knew for me it was time to get a checkup, get my blood work done, figure out what my risk factors were.
So this last point is a bit of a strange statement to make. He has been eating processed refined foods and a decent amount of red meat for a while. And it is only recently that I made a video reviewing what Dr. Mike eats in a day and said that he needs to watch those processed refined foods and also saturated fats, etc. So it's strange that he needs a blood test to work out his risk factors. So if his bloods were okay, does Dr. Mike genuinely believe that he would have been okay to continue to eat this way? Particularly when many people eating this way drop dead of a heart attack with no perceived blood test risk factors.
And this is a really important teaching point here, because you don't need to get blood work done all the time. It's about knowing the right intervals of when to get your blood checked. That's why it's so important to have a family medicine doctor to guide you on when you should be getting your cholesterol checked, when you should get your sugar checked.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Bloods are not the be-all and end-all of analysing your health.
Blood work has to be ordered with a purpose, because we treat the patient, not the lab value. In fact, when you get blood work done too often, that increases the rate of medical error, because something could be off just in that given moment, and it really confuses and muddles the picture, not to mention the healthcare spending that comes with that.
That is a great philosophy that Dr. Mike has there about treating the patient and not the lab value. Unfortunately, I don't believe this is the common approach of many doctors today. Many doctors that I work with or my patients work with are only interested in lab values, and if a patient's lab values are okay despite their health falling apart, they are often sent on their way, leaving the patient in a quagmire of suffering. Let me know if this is something you have experienced with your doctor in the comments below, because I am genuinely interested.
For me, one of the tests I needed to order, especially knowing how poor my diet has been over the last year, I needed to check my cholesterol. I didn't expect this at all. My cholesterol is through the roof.
So you've heard Dr. Mike say that he's been very lazy with his diet, and later in the video he discusses the poor diet that he's been eating for a while. So how on earth did he not expect those type of blood test outcomes? Again, it is a very bizarre statement to make. It's like me saying that I didn't revise for an exam and then I'm totally surprised when I get a shoddy outcome.
It was getting to be at such a high level that it was almost falling into the category of, you can't get it this high with just the diet. We need to check if you have a familial gene for hypercholesterolemia.
Unfortunately for many doctors, that is the common approach. It couldn't possibly be what I'm putting on my plate. There has to be something more complex behind this.
If I had a patient my age walk in with that cholesterol, I would have a very serious conversation about genetic testing. My number, my LDL cholesterol, was 185.
Again, the first conversation that Dr. Mike or any doctor should be having with their patients is, what are you eating? Let's first try modifying your diet, and then after this, if your numbers are still high, then we can look at genetic testing.
Getting into the 190s is like potentially have a heart attack at age 40 with no symptoms bad. And I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to die. It was a brutal wake-up call for me.
Unfortunately for many, it takes health problems or dangerous markers in their bloods for them to make the necessary health changes that they need. But for many, this will be too little, too late. If you have health problems, then deal with them today and not in 3 years when these finally show up on your blood test that your doctor ordered for you.
The general goal is we want to get the LDL cholesterol below 100. So in going back to see what I was doing, I realized I developed some really bad habits. And they're bad habits that I want to highlight with you today because it goes to argue the point that weight is not the single determinant of your health status.
I don't think too many people believe this to be the case. Unless you are some health influencer with a six-pack, then of course it doesn't matter what you eat.
I was not eating a lot of calories during the day. Therefore, my weight was okay. But my cholesterol markers were terrible because of the type of foods I was consuming.
I'm sorry, but is this really a surprise? If, like Dr. Mike, you eat a poor diet and then you get poor blood test results, then this should be no surprise. And if it's such a surprise, then you should be educating yourself more on nutrition, particularly when you're on the front line of people's health, as Dr. Mike is.
Here's how a typical day went. I would wake up, not eat anything. I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. Don't have much of an appetite in the morning.
Good. Intermittent fasting works incredibly well for many people and the benefits are well established.
So then I would continue along with my day till lunchtime where I would have a salad. And then came dinner time. I was still working because I work really late hours where it would be like 10, 11, 12 a.m. and I'm done with work, but I'm starving.
Circadian rhythms are 24-hour cycles that are part of the body's internal clock, running in the background to carry out essential functions. If you eat late at night because you are working late, this can be a big problem with your body's metabolism and hormones such as insulin. In fact, Sachin Panda, who is one of the leading authorities on metabolism and circadian rhythms, has shown in clinical trials that you can take a healthy person, make them eat later in the evening, restrict their sleeping patterns, and then effectively turn a healthy person pre-diabetic quite quickly. Dr. Mike needs to work on this area because longer term it will take him no place good.
And I worked out in the morning, so I burned like 800 calories. I need to consume some serious calories right now in order to not lose weight and keep some muscle on.
So what is he doing in the gym, burning 800 calories? The average person runs 5 to 6 miles per hour, and it would take the average person at least 2 hours at these speeds to burn around 800 calories. Equally, for someone who is cycling at a speed of 12 to 13 miles per hour, it will take upwards of 2 hours to burn those 800 calories. So again, what on earth is he doing in the gym and how long is he there for?
What I ended up doing was binge eating late at night, really low quality foods. An extra cheese pizza with pepperoni on it, I would take it to the face. A cheeseburger, a double cheeseburger, nuggets, or some kind of like crispy shrimp.
This is what happens when you are probably over-exercising and you are also of the mindset, well, I've exercised hard today, therefore I can eat whatever I want. As the saying goes, you can't out-exercise a poor diet.
So for the day, I only consumed like 2,300 calories, burned 800 in the morning. I was good. My body was looking great, like my six-pack started even coming in, but my cholesterol levels were quietly going through the roof.
And that right there is the Instagram world in which we live today. I can see my abs, therefore I must be healthy.
Because I was consuming a lot of saturated fat, a lot of fried foods, unhealthy foods, a lot of red meat, giant steak, like it was way too much red meat.
Again, without sounding like an idiot here, but he was eating all of those different types of food and then he is somehow surprised when he gets poor test results. And this is so worrying for someone who is charged with helping other people fix these types of problems with their diets.
Because I need someone to be objective, I reached out to my good friend, Dr. Danielle Bellardo, who's a well-trained cardiologist, knows everything about cholesterol and lowering cholesterol, and I knew she could be of help.
She also happens to be an advocate of plant-based diets, and I will just add this in here.
LDL LDL cholesterol is the actual most important cholesterol that we look at with regards to cardiac risk. Even though I think you may have possibly some genetic components of high cholesterol, I do think that there's a lot you can do to reduce your LDL with diet significantly.
Yes, I think that many people would agree with that. Genetics loads the gun, but it's ultimately lifestyle that pulls the trigger.
Dr. Bellardo gave me 3 tips on how to lower my LDL cholesterol from least to most important that I follow.
Again, I know this is a video, so it's done for effect, but Dr. Mike should know these types of tips if he is routinely advising people on their diets on a daily basis.
Third is to decrease dietary cholesterol.
Reducing the amount of any sort of kind of processed foods, junk foods, refined carbohydrates, that can make a huge difference.
Yes, that should not be a surprise to too many people.
Second is to bump up my fiber intake to about 60 grams of fiber per day. Not an easy task.
Fiber only exists in plants, and so by eating more plant-based foods, whether it be fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, this can help reduce your cholesterol as well, and your LDL specifically.
Again, very good advice for those with high levels of cholesterol. Soluble fiber helps lower cholesterol by binding to it in the small intestines. But clearly, if you are eating poorly and eating lots of saturated fats, then increasing your fiber intake will make little difference.
First and most important is to decrease my saturated fat consumption.
Saturated fat we can see in both animal products and plant products. For example, coconut oil is really high in saturated fat and can raise your LDL. So dropping saturated fat by cutting back on red meat, butter, bacon, cheese, or high-fat dairy, that can make a huge difference too.
Again, this is something that Dr. Mike should have known what he was doing very simply by looking at what was on his plate. Is he really trying to say that eating all of these foods that he was eating, that he didn't know that they contain high amounts of saturated fats?
Knowing my cholesterol was so high, I knew I needed to start eating healthier. But eating healthy isn't always so simple.
This is true when there is so much temptation around us. But equally, with all that's going on in the world, it's one of the last remaining things that you have direct control over. So for example, if you have a sweet tooth and you snack on chocolate biscuits at home regularly, then a simple solution is don't buy them, and then you can't snack on them at home. This doesn't mean that you can't enjoy treats, just choose healthier versions or make your own.
I was primarily now getting my protein sources from fish as the #1 source, plants like beans, and then chicken. Those are like my 3 primary sources of protein.
Okay, I think we can acknowledge here that plants have protein and fish and chicken are not necessary in Dr. Mike's diet.
When it comes to the second point of increasing fiber, that was probably the hardest. Not only was my GI system kind of a mess, like I was bloated, having some flatulence issues, once my body adjusted to the huge jump in fiber content, I started feeling a lot better and I became more regular and all of that improved.
Yes, this is a common problem for many increasing the amount of fiber in their diet, particularly those who are transitioning from standard Western diets to plant-centric diets. So let's see how Dr. Mike dealt with this.
But how did I get there? First, I started having to take a fiber supplement. The reality though is even when you take a fiber supplement twice a day, you're only increasing your fiber intake by like 5 or 6 grams. So I still had to find other ways to get my fiber in. The best way that I found to get my fiber in was through black beans. And I like black beans. I think they taste great, they have some protein, and the fiber content is amazing.
There is a much simpler way rather than relying on any one food or food group. Use something like Chronometer to see how much fiber you are currently eating. Work out how much fiber you want to end up eating in a day, and then simply increase your fiber amounts by around 5 to 10% per week. For many people, this will help them avoid problems such as gas and bloating and also bowel movement issues. If you have tried slowly increasing the amount of fiber in your diet and you are still having issues, then reach out to a healthcare practitioner, as there may be other issues at play in the gut that have the potential to get worse unless you look into them. So for example, conditions such as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
There's ways you can pick bean foods that aren't actually beans. There's ways to make your pasta to be legume based. You drastically increase the amount of fiber you're consuming. I also found some fiber to go bars, protein bar that had some fiber in them that was also plant-based. I got some freeze-dried blueberries and raspberries, which have a great amount of fiber in them.
Some of those are okay to use if you are working up your fiber intake, but try not to use the more processed refined foods too often. In an ideal situation, you will get your calories and fiber from whole foods.
Over the next month, because it's been about a month now following this, I will say certain changes became visible quickly.
Speak on, dear friend.
First, I actually lost 10 to like 12 pounds. I wasn't intending to lose the weight, but I was, and I was starting to look and feel better. I feel more energized when I wake up in the mornings. My stomach isn't as bloated. I don't feel as full, like nasty full throughout the day, but it's also made a big difference in how I perform in everyday tasks in life. But the benefit that I'm doing for my health by eating this way is huge.
Who knew that eating less animal foods and increasing your levels of fruits, vegetables and fibre would make you feel better? Incredible, isn't it?
The raspberries and blueberries I'm eating don't just have fiber, they have vitamins and minerals in.
Do they?
The beans that I'm consuming are good for my heart.
Really?
There's so much other added value in eating this way that goes just past the cholesterol point. Like, it really woke me up to the mistakes that I was making in my dietary habits. And this goes to show two things. One, that just because you're a doctor or you're an expert in something doesn't mean you're always making the right choices for yourselves.
Absolutely, I would agree with not being an expert here. Eating lots of saturated fats and then being surprised when you have out of range blood test results show this.
And second, that despite being at a healthy weight and having nearly a six-pack, I was unhealthy. Our health goes past our weight.
Amen to that, but unfortunately too many people still place aesthetics and image over health. Or worse, they actually believe that being ripped is somehow a free pass to eating a poor diet.
All right, it's been a couple of days. I got my test results back. I needed to see that my total cholesterol would go down. And by changing my lifestyle, I know that if my total cholesterol goes down, it's because the LDL went down, which is the bad cholesterol.
And what happened, Dr. Mike?
And it worked. My total cholesterol number totally went down. And it went down significantly in just 5 short weeks. Initially, my total cholesterol, 265. Now, 217. If I check this 3 months later, it'll probably be even below 200, which is ideally where we want it to be. So now I have to keep my cholesterol low and healthy by continuing this lifestyle.
Doesn't Dr. Mike sound like everyone who watches Fork Over Knives and then they have to run around telling everyone to eat more fruits and vegetables and fibre? We have all been there, Dr. Mike.
That doesn't mean I won't occasionally indulge in some pizza or burgers or like chicken nuggets or something, but I've learned to love fiber-rich foods. I've learned to incorporate more plant-based foods in my diet, and frankly, I feel like my palate has evolved. It's like a Pokemon.
Yes, I would agree with those statements. Try and eat whole foods 80% of the time, but you certainly, if you want to, shouldn't feel bad for having a pizza or burger at the weekend if you fancy it. Anyhow, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.